very good evening to you and welcome to American Sports. Tonight does exactly what it says on the tin. We like American sports. We're doing it tonight and that's what we're here for. It's not just me, of course, my partner in crime, the south to my north. Ollie Wilson is here with me and we've got three absolutely stellar guests. We're talking NFL a lot, we're talking NBA a little, and we're getting kind of excited for the Super Bowl. But Ollie, over to you.
Well, it's all set in stone really, isn't it, for the Super Bowl? A week on Sunday, the Seattle Seahawks will be taking on the New England Patriots. We're going to take a look back, though, at some of the action from the weekend. Of course, the two NFC and AFC Championship games. Joining us in studio tonight, Will Gavin, Max Whittle and Stephen Edwards. Three expert minds from the UK NFL scene.
Absolute heavyweights. Max, of course, from the Tom and Max podcast. You might have seen his columns in The Guardian. You've seen Will Gav if you were here last week. I mean, my goodness, we'll have to calm him because he's got two other guests to fight with now, who is, of course, he's got his own football podcast, quite frankly, the TMF, the UK's biggest independent podcasts. And speaking of podcasts, over to the far of the room, we've got the lovely Stephen from FT UK, iTunes #1 UK American sports podcast. That's a lot to get in. Now I'd like to talk football. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks. Am I splitting the podcast?
You are.
Yeah. You are. If there's any trouble between these two, if they get any kind of podcast rivalry or anything like that, you're the one in the middle who's going to deal with all the fists flying and everything like that, and we'll just cut to break it.
He's definitely one who looks most like a as well.
He should be able to deal with being sat in between you two. Let's get down to the fighting though that was in the NFC Championship game. What a fight that was, and what a fight back, some people will say, by the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson having one of the worst games that you'll ever see a quarterback have in that first half. I'm going to start with you, Will, because you're looking like you're desperate to get something out here. Are we looking at Green Bay throwing this one away, or should we be praising the resilience of the Seattle Seahawks?
It's not a popular thing to say, but Green Bay were unlucky in this game. Now, it's not popular to say that because people will go, no, they weren't. They threw it all away themselves, whether it was down to
ugly football,
poor play calling, whether it was down to, well, there were so many bad decisions. We could sit here and go through each of them one by one by one, whether it was the failed attempt to clear the 2 points from Clinton-Dix. There was Morgan Burnett not running the fourth interception back. You know, if you're not capitalising on 4 turnovers against a team who aren't getting the ball moving, at the point that we got to 5 minutes of the game left, they'd only scored the 1 touchdown thanks to a fake field goal. It was a mess from Seattle's point of view, but for all of those things to have all happened in a row and for it to be, I think you could have been conservative in that game with how badly the Seahawks were playing. And I don't necessarily people want to knock McCarthy for taking the points early on. I think when you're in CenturyLink, when you're playing an offense they're playing that badly, the first one isn't necessarily a bad decision. But the second one, you're 4th and 1, you already know you've been in that situation once, you're on the goal line, take a risk. Say to them, you've not been able to move the ball at all, now try to go 90 yards and score a touchdown.
But Max, people will be saying, take the points, especially against a Seattle defence that doesn't allow you to get down near the red zone too often.
No, but people are missing the fact that second and third drive, the Packers in the game, what you mentioned there, they should have scored 6 points both times. They could have got 14, they ended up getting 6. That was a big problem. But I love the resiliency of this Seattle team. Look at Russell Wilson after he threw his 4th pick. He went over to Darrell Bevel, the offensive coordinator, and he said to him, we're going to win this. And I know which player we're going to win it with. And lo and behold, the biggest play for me was the 2-point conversion. Mason Crosby's kick would have won the game if they hadn't have made that. And Clinton-Dix, who's already got, 2 picks already? Great name, by the way.
Potentially defensive. He's been brilliant this season, brought in at safety. And he was. I mean, I think about 5 minutes of the game left, I tweeted out that if there's one player who deserves to win the MVP for the NFC Championship game, it's going to be Clinton-Dix. He was absolutely awesome.
But did he forget how important that play was? He didn't make an attempt to get Luke Wilson there.
It was a bizarre, just essentially the ball just thrown up in the air. It was almost a play he didn't expect it to be. Went for it earlier than he should have done and just completely misjudged it. And you could say that's a rookie error, but it's when it kind of combined with everything else, it was a terrible play. And then, well, we've got to look at what Bostic did on the attempted onside kick.
Great.
You've got a job. You're the third string tight end.
You've
had
got one job.
One job, which is to block one guy.
But that's why I think he tried to catch it, because he's a tight end. That's the natural.
Stephen,
hang on a second.
My problem, sorry, just to say, my problem is I did defend Bostic at the time. I was on Twitter going, no, you're a tight end. That's your natural instinct. And then as I watched replay after replay after replay, I just realised he completely blew his assignment. He had a job to do. The guy who ends up catching the ball is the guy he was assigned to block. And behind him, you've got Jordy Nelson, who arguably, between him and Antonio Brown, have been the best receiver in the NFL this season. It catches that ball, the game is over.
Didn't make it stick.
No, this is it. I mean, he didn't make it stick. I mean, he was put out there to be the blocker. The unfortunate thing is that it comes to him, and he's and then kind of
glory in the eye.
Yeah, this is it. He sees this one moment where he can take his team to the Super Bowl, and it just blows up in his face. It's rather unfortunate.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
This has come down to.
He's got the Subway commercial already in his head. Hey, if you want to make a great catch.
But if they were so confident, Bennett's pick before that, he went to ground. A lot of people have questioned that. But I think in his mind, it could have been going back to the wildcard round, Detroit-Dallas, when DeMarcus Lawrence tried to run the ball back and he fumbled it, but he obviously got the.
I think that was something that signified the mentality for me in that Green Bay not running that back and the way they celebrated that as well seemed like they thought they'd already won it. 5 minutes to go, interception by Wilson. Don't run it back, drop to the ground. We'll start running the time out. We've got points in the bag here. We've got this game under wraps, and that was something I think that. Where Green Bay stumbled, Stephen, in that their mentality went because they were convinced that they had it won already. Yeah, I think they did think they already won it already, but I think it was just another statement of the fact that their play calling over the whole game, to me, was very conservative. I mean, we already talked about what they did in the first quarter, about only going for the field goals at that time, and again, not running that back again, the conservative nature, we'll protect what we've got. We'll then try and run the ball, even though we've got Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We need to move that ball. But we're going to just run and run and run, and then that's again.
And interestingly, Mike McCarthy in his post-match press conference said, I had a target in my head, which was to run the ball 20 times in the second half. What absolute nonsense. You play to a situation, you don't go to yourself, well, that's what I'm going to do. Otherwise,
it's not sales.
Why not just run the ball the first 20 plays of the game and then you've won it? It just doesn't work like that. We spoke about it last week. With Brandon Meebay missing out the middle of that Seahawks defence, you can run on that team as it currently stands. And they did do that early on, but as soon as Marshawn Lynch in the second half grabbed that game by the scruff of the neck, started running the ball down their throat, and he was the reason they got set up in the position where they could get that fake field goal conversion. You've got to suddenly think, right, their offense is going to start going here. You can trust that Wilson, despite having a terrible game, has those great plays in him, and he made those two phenomenal touch passes in overtime.
Not just the offense, though. The McCarthy should have sensed that Seattle packing the line, and I think it was the last two drives, the Packers were out within 70 seconds. So when the Green Bay got the ball back, Mike McCarthy has to think, we need a first down, and that's probably why they continue to run the ball. But Seattle's defense was starting to click then, and Lacey over 100 yards in the second half.
That's what they do.
Writing was on the wall.
I mean, that's what we want from the Seahawks.
Here's something for you then. Richard Sherman has got his...
I'm so angry about this.
Arm, basically, he's holding it almost in its own sling. He's still out on the field, one-handed, on that final Green Bay drive when they went down to get the field goal to take it to overtime. They threw on him once on an underneath pass to get 6 yards, I think it was, in the end, to set up the field goal. Wouldn't you're the best passer in the league, Aaron Rodgers, wouldn't you have taken a shot deep on Sherman if he's got his arm in a partial
Great storyline, though, that they didn't go to Nelson in week one. They didn't target Sherman when they played them in week one. And it's so obvious that he's hurting. It's not like Earl Thomas comes back out with a dislocated shoulder, but he shows no sign. He doesn't care. Sherman is clearly holding his arm, and they don't. You've got to go to him.
Actually, people want to put that on Rodgers. I think that's more down to the coaching what happened there, because, and we've mentioned play calling so many times so far, but the first two plays out on the field after Sherman comes back out with that sprained elbow, the way that he works he jams off the line, and then he takes the outside. He's almost always plays as an edge corner. Lets the guy go inside him, knowing that he's got the agility and always keeps his eyes upfield on the quarterback, that he can jump the route and make the play. He's a big play guy, it's what he does. The first two plays he comes out, he turns to force the guy to go on the outside before the play's even gone. It's clear he's not playing his normal style. That gives you that open line down the outside. You've got someone like Jordy Nelson, who might be, like we were saying, the best edge receiver in the league. The coach is on the sideline, McCarthy, whoever, even Dom Capers is meant to be a defensive genius. See what's happened on those first two plays and go, just send it over the top. Just get it down that sideline. We'll get one play out of it, and that'll win the game. It's done.
Yeah.
Chance to shut him up as well, which is what a lot of teams want to do, and they're too scared. I think it comes down to the fear factor. The Seahawks are so they get in your face, they get in your grill, and maybe they just bottled it in the end. They didn't want to go to Sherman.
Are we looking forward to seeing the Seahawks again in action at the Super Bowl, though? Is this what we wanted?
From a point of view of you're seeing like one of the best teams in football, and I think they're the team that a lot of people expect to come out of the NFC. Yeah. But I think from our point of view, it's if you're not a fan of New England and Seattle, I think you're going to take a look at that Super Bowl and go, it's the lesser of two evils almost of which one you actually want to win that game, because I'm sitting here and I don't want even to win.
I'm so on your page.
Why is
I am as a I cover this game. It's my first Super Bowl I'm going to this year, and I literally. If you'd asked me at the beginning of the season, is it your first Super Bowl, who are the two worst teams?
No!
From your personal perspective, not from a game perspective, it's going to be a great fun game. But you've got, as a 49ers fan, I am a fan. This whole thing about people shouldn't have so you've got your divisional rivals, and then you've got Tom Brady, who, if he wins this game, for me, leapfrogs Joe Montana as the best postseason quarterback of all time.
I don't know about that.
Steven's got rebutted.
But why should rings matter? That's what I really don't like.
It's not just about rings, though.
But it is. If he gets to 4,
because nobody cares.
That's
nobody cares how many records you break. Nobody cares. I mean, for goodness' sake, nobody cares who you are. You can be the best of the best, and we will always say. But did they win a Super Bowl?
It shouldn't
be. It's 9 AFC Championship games. They've won 6 of them. If they win this Super Bowl, they've won 4 out of 6 of those Super Bowls. That is just really. And
my favourite.
Marino. I mean, look, for goodness' sake.
Yeah, he only went to one Super Bowl.
Yeah, but did he
my
win
favourite stat though is Brady's 20 playoff victories at the moment is more than 21 of the 32 franchises standing alone, which is incredible. But going back to the matchup. I love it because Seattle, since they were 6-4, they're now 8-0. They've won 8 games in a row. New England, 33 points or something they're averaging since that October 1st game they lost in Green Bay. Or was it the Kansas City defeat? Yeah. So it's a great matchup statistically. I think that's...
Well, I was going to say, because these are two sides that, in the early part of the season, a third of it into, say, 6 games.
We were writing
both these.
We weren't all
when
writing
the Seahawks went 3-3 and they lost that Week 6 game, there were a lot of people, particularly the 49ers, did start off well this season despite all the injuries. And obviously we saw the Cardinals race out undefeated very early on. But if I'd asked you at the beginning of the season, you've seen the Patriots, everyone wants to write them off after 4 or 5 games. The same for the Seahawks. Would you bet against either of those teams actually turning it around and going all the way? I think very few people would have gone, no, they're not the sort of franchises who can do that. Patriots just because of the quality of the coaching, and we always say they find a way to win no matter what. And the Seahawks because of the attitude. Actually, the attitude I had a real issue with on Sunday night because... Do you know what? Coming out after the game, and it was particularly Doug Baldwin's interview with the media. It's all, you didn't believe in us. Last season, that worked. That whole us v them, underdog. No one believed in us, we're the underdog. You went into the season favourites to win the NFC, favourites to take the #1. You went into this game a full touchdown favourites, despite the fact you're playing the Green Bay Packers.
Not many people are doubting
nobody is going
on the attitude. Marshall
did it the hard way.
Jigging and dancing in the 4th quarter.
Do it again, man.
And I actually wrote about that, and a lot of people were on the fence whether they thought he was just so supremely confident they were going to win. I think Wilson's like that. I'm not sure Lynch is actually that bothered about that. He's too relaxed, in my opinion. That's where the attitude comes in. But you're right. No one was doubting the Seahawks were going to go to the Super Bowl.
And okay, we were doubting them when they were 16-0 down and they were playing terribly on offense, and the defense wasn't stopping them until they got into the red zone. Of course we were doubting at that point because they were playing the worst game of football we've seen them play in the last 2 seasons. Sorry, is there something wrong with us doubting them when they're playing that bad?
No, there's nothing wrong with you doubting them. I mean, it's the case of the Green Bay let them off the hook. I mean, this is it. I mean, you have an opponent down, you just continue to kick them and just get them out of that game. Because otherwise you know that they've got... No, not literally, but they've got the ability to come back in that game. 16-0 down is only 2 scores. And that's the one thing that annoys me about the fact of the fake. Surely you should be expecting that fake, that is coming, because they're not going to put 3 points on the board at that stage.
Brad Jones completely blew that as well, because he had him covered and then panicked because he saw the punter roll out and decided he'd go and try and close him down and just left the guy wide open. And actually, I mean, I assume we're going to go on and talk about the other game, but it just showed you the mentality between the Packers and the Patriots.
No, hold that.
They were
Say something for the second quarter, darling. It's all good. We're nearly going to go to a break, actually, but when we do get back, we are going to talk about that second game, which, let's face it, we were all picking ourselves up and dusting I needed sedation, basically, after the second quarter, the 2 the last 2 quarters of that game. I just couldn't cope. I could not cope with my life. Were you actually emotionally ready for the second game?
Well, after I think the news that's come out of it is the main talking point, the New England game. Not much really happened in that game apart from the fact that the balls might have been deflated. But during the game, I think we all knew this was a mismatch. Patriots have had the Colts' hand for a long time now.
Save it for me. I just wanted to warm you up, tease the end, and it's done. We are going to go to a break, and when we do get back, we are talking so much more NFL because some of these lucky so-and-sos are going to the Super Bowl next week. Not me, though. I'll be here. We are going to talk, I'm not bitter, we are going to talk NFL, we are going to talk NBA. Go get yourself a cuppa. Get yourself relaxed, get your onesie on, whatever it is that you want to do, because we ain't going nowhere. I've asked these lads to bring sleeping bags in. It's all about all the American sports, particularly the NFL, because this is our time, really. And we are going to go to a break. See you soon. Bye-bye.